All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to fundamentally shift how you engineer the ultimate summer cookout topping. We aren't just talking about throwing a bunch of ingredients together today. We're talking about culinary science and the highly specific architecture of a total classic. Welcome to the anatomy of a condiment.
We're treating this recipe like a scientific dossier today. We'll start with the hot dog chili matrix, move right through protocols alpha to delta, covering everything from meat emulsion to thermodynamic reduction, and then wrap things up with the purist pushback.
Section 1. The hot dog chili matrix. Let's look at the core structural problem we're trying to solve.
Think back to your last cookout. Why is it that your chili dog always seems to fall apart? We've all been there, right? That catastrophic collapse on the very first bite that totally ruins your shirt. Well, as it turns out, it all comes down to basic physics.
And this comparison really hits the nail on the head. On one side, you've got your standard eating chili. It's thick, it's chunky, and it's built to be eaten with a spoon out of a bowl. On the other side, we have true Coney sauce. Executing a proper hot dog chili requires a fundamentally different structural matrix. We're talking about a highly emulsified, finely textured meat paste. Because think about it, if you pile heavy chunks of meat and giant beans onto a hot dog, the physical weight alone is going to cause it to roll straight off that curved surface. You need a sauce specifically engineered to blanket a frankfurter.
Moving on to Section 2, Protocol Alpha, meat emulsion. This is the secret technique.
So to get that fine, almost gritless texture you'd find at a classic old-school diner, you actually have to break a golden culinary rule. You literally never sear the meat first. I know, that goes against everything we've ever learned about cooking ground beef, but for this specific application, it is an absolute game changer.
Here's the exact protocol. You're going to put 1 pound of raw protein straight into a cold saucepan. Heat is the enemy right now. Pour a cup of cold water or broth right over it. Then you aggressively mash that liquid into the meat until it forms a perfectly uniform paste. Only after you've done that do you introduce the heat and bring it to a simmer, stirring the whole time. Doing this cold mash prevents the proteins from clumping together, which guarantees that mandatory spreadable diner texture.
All right, Section 3, Protocol Beta, Flavor Base, where we build the spice and acid matrix. Let's examine the exact components we need here. Check out the Savory Bridge section. You need a ½ cup of onion and a clove of garlic. But the catch is, they must be minced almost into a paste so they completely dissolve and don't ruin our smooth structure. For the base itself, we're using 8 ounces of plain tomato sauce plus a ¼ cup of ketchup, which gives us essential sucrose and acetic acid. Then we lock the whole thing in with a highly specific spice blend of chili powder, cumin, mustard, onion powder, and salt. It's like a giant flavor puzzle.
Next up is Section 4, Protocol Gamma, turkey substitution.
Now, what if you're swapping out standard beef for 93% lean ground turkey? Well, you're going to run straight into what we call a lipid and umami deficit. In plain English, your recipe is suddenly missing crucial fat and glutamates. If you don't correct this resulting deficit, your condiment is going to be a dry, chalky, and honestly, flavorless failure.
Thankfully, there's a super easy chemical fix. During that cold mash step we talked about, you just artificially bump up the lipid profile by adding 1½ tablespoons of butter or olive oil. That completely fixes the mouthfeel. Then, to artificially replicate the deep, savory resonance of beef, you add 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce and a teaspoon of soy sauce right into the tomato base. This simple little adjustment absolutely saves the sauce.
That brings us to Section 5, Protocol Delta, thermodynamic reduction.
Protocol Delta is really just an exercise in patience. Drop your heat to low, leave the pan uncovered, and let the whole mixture slowly and deliberately simmer for about 30 to 40 minutes, giving it a stir every now and then. All we're doing here is evaporating that excess water we introduced way back in Protocol Alpha.
And how do you know when it's perfectly done? Well, the chili is going to reach this incredibly precise state where it sits comfortably on a spoon without weeping any clear liquid around the edges. But at the same time, it should still be soft enough to spread effortlessly, almost like jam. That right there is the absolute gold standard for hot dog chili.
Finally, Section 6, the purist pushback. Let's look at the controversy.
So, while a lot of casual home cooks love throwing beans in to stretch out a recipe, the classic American diner and state fair standard strictly prohibits them. And the reason is purely mechanical. As the source material points out, beans essentially act as tiny ball bearings. When you load them onto the curved surface of a hot dog, they literally cause the sauce to just roll right off.
And of course, we have to talk about the pushback from the Texas traditionalists. True Texas chili con carne purists argue that the second you add tomato sauce and ketchup, you completely invalidate the recipe as a true chili. Because of the sugar and acid from the ketchup, they relegate this diner staple to the category of a sweet, spiced meat gravy. Now, we're definitely not here to take sides in this culinary war, but it's really vital to understand the parameters of what we're actually making.
So, when you flawlessly execute this highly engineered, strictly emulsified condiment at your next cookout, it leaves us with one delicious and, honestly, kind of controversial question. Where exactly do you draw the line on the definition of chili? Does adding ketchup instantly turn it into a gravy, or does the diner standard reign supreme on a hot dog? Definitely something to chew on next time you take a bite. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and keep asking those big questions about the food on your plate.